the topic and the things we're going to be thinking both tonight and next Tuesday evening when we consider the topic of diversity. That is to say, tolerance to other people on this planet who are a little bit different from us. And so tonight we have my good friend Eugene Redshirt, and I'll let him take it from here.
Thank you, Gordon. Good evening. My name is Eugene Redshirt Jr. I'm full-blooded Oglala Lakota from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. I'm here to discuss with you some of the Lakota history and traditions. I'd like to start with the life and time of my great-great-grandfather, Chief Redshirt. Photograph of my great-great-grandfather. He was born in 1845 on the Platte River near Fort Fetterman in Wyoming. Redshirt was part of the Wagluhe, or Loafers Band of Oglala Lakota, or First People. It was a time when the native people still lived in teepees and made their clothes from hides, and were hunters and gatherers, and were excellent archers and horsemen. The teepee was made from buffalo hides and 25-foot poles held together using the bones of a buffalo. Each lodge was erected with the door facing the east. The man took his position facing the door. The white took the position opposite, which is by the door. In the day of my grandfather, it was the job of the woman to put up and take down the teepee. The traditional Lakota clothing of men and women was made from elk and deer hides at the time. And long before glass beads, Lakota women used porcupine quills. They would bite them. They would flatten them out, and that's how you were able to make the elaborate designs. These here are not. These are beaded. But, and these are your more traditional style of clothing here. This is a long dress that a woman would wear, and I'd say the traditional how a man would dress in these days, but not that fancy. These are the war bonnets. The war bonnet, as it is known by both non-Indians and Indians, was earned not just through war exploits. Eagle feathers were earned through bravery and generosity as well as other deeds. I mean, you didn't just wear eagle feathers because it was the cool thing to do at the time. You earned them whether you showed compassion, fortitude, any of these, the 16 values that we hold dear to people. You didn't just sport one of these because it was the cool thing to do with your friends. You earned these through exploits, whether they were brave or not. Cultural differences between each tribe was the Plains Pacific, and anyway, the Plains Indians were completely different. They were nomadic hunters and gatherers. They moved where their game went. The Pacific Northwest were the Chinook Indians. They're the guys who built the large totem poles. The northern tribes were over there. The northeast were in New York area, they would be the Mohawk and the Micmac. The southern Indians would be the Alabama, the Cherokee, as well as the Seminoles. The woodlands were more of the Iroquois, any Algonquin-speaking tribe, basically, was woodlands. And coastal was, well, the Powhatan and the Seminoles once again. At the time, before colonization, there was 112 million native people here. After genocide, 6 million remain. And each year that number dwindles due to their own demise. Each tribe has individual traditions and customs. Only Plains Indians live in teepees. As you can see, the Lakota, there was 3 main branches of the what we would be known as the Sioux. There was the Lakota, the Nakota, and the Dakota. Each of us spoke a different dialect from each other. The 7 branches, known as the Ochiti, Shakowin, which was the 7 council fires. And these guys were the Oglala, the Humpapa, the Sichangu, the Ohinumpa, the Minikanju, and the Siasapas, as well as the Oglalas. We, and the Itazipas, who were the Nobos people. Each of these groups had a chief of their own. And we differed in languages. The other Plains Indians, who were the Cheyenne, the Arapahoes, the Flatheads, the Shoshones, the Crows, and the Plains Apache, as well as the Comanche. These are just a few of them. In 1870, the Lakota sent a peace delegation to Washington, D.C. to speak with President Ulysses S. Grant. The terms were discussed, and it looked like an end to the Indian Wars was in sight. The 5 chiefs here, these are them. Gall, American Horse, Red Cloud, Little One, and Red Shirt. The 5 chiefs sat in council with President Grant, and after the terms were discussed and each man agreed to what was being said, they gave him a map of their region. And it was at this point Red Cloud asked the president, "What do these lines mean?" He told him boundaries. And it was at this moment Red Cloud turned to the other 4 chiefs and said, "Itoshni," which is lies. The word is lies in our language. And he forked his fingers as if to say that the president spoke with a snake's tongue. And these 5 men here, they all agreed. And this here is the Buffalo Bill Cody Wild West Show, which was established in, I guess, 1878 or something. But in 1880, Red Shirt along with Sitting Bull joined the Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show. Both of the great chiefs were the most popular attractions right next to a little sure shot, Annie Oakley. Sitting Bull eventually retired in 1887. He retired because he didn't want to get on a boat heading to England. And it was at that time, 3 years later, he would be dead. And Sitting Bull feared water because he said it was something man should not even be crossing. And that's why he didn't want to go. He was later killed by Indian police. But they didn't kill him out of jealousy or anger. They killed him out of fear. The government feared Sitting Bull more than anything because they thought he would lead an uprising against, another uprising against them. And this is all the cast. This was taken in Italy at the time. There, and, you can see there's Cody, there's Annie Oakley, and there's Richard at the very end here. And it's in here. That was in 1889. This here, the Wild West show opened on May 9th, 1887 in London. This was during the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. At the time she was in deep mourning because of her, she lost her husband, Albert, at the time, and she wore all black every day, everywhere she went to. And upon arriving, Redshirt made it known that he remarked, "I have come many thousands of miles to see you. Now that I've seen you, my heart is glad." Those words circulated in the papers around the country in England. And from then on, he was a friend of hers. And he made several appearances with her in different places in around London, appearing with the royal court. And she wrote about it in her diary, about how he was a very, that he was not the simple savage everybody would say about these people. And he was a very well advanced man, and he knew how to speak and hold himself well. She also said, "I know a prince when I see one." This was him in his Wild West show get up, and there was the queen there. This was, as you can see, she's still wearing the black in there. Okay, this here, these are the words in our language, which is what we call God is Wakantanga. It's supposed to be a great mystery, not spirit. It was these words, as you can see, Tatanka is buffalo, Wambli is the eagle, Tashunka is the horse, the Chuyohi is the moccasin or shoe. Now these words, this word here, holy man and medicine man, people get mixed up completely, because a medicine man is what you would call a doctor in a hospital, not a holy man. A holy man is more like what we would call like a priest. We would say, "Wichasha wakam." If we saw a doctor, we would say, "Pejuta wichasha." We'd say the same thing about a nurse in the hospital. Pejuta wiyan is a medicine woman. Coyote and wolf is shumanitu. In our language, there's no word for goodbye. We don't have a word for it. We do have a word for hello, which is how. And that's really something we used to say. It's pretty much, that's reality. And, as you can tell, among our traditional foods, fry bread was not something that we were born with. Fry bread, as you can tell, was Scottish. It came from the Scotsmen who taught us how to make food on the run. We make this, it's like a pemmican, it's called wasna. We make it out of buffalo, deer, elk, any other. Wojapi, I spelled it wrong there, I did, is a sweet mashed fruit. If you get any fruit, you can basically put, I think it's cornstarch in there, and you mash it, and it's pretty good. You have to try it. This stuff, the taniga, Heather's not a fan of that, and it's tripe basically. It's the stomach of the buffalo at the time. That's what we had. Now they got beef, and you eat it from the cow. choke cherries were more of a, if you dry them, you make them into patties, it's like sort of a Indian cookie almost. You can eat them like that. As far as buffalo stew, which is tatanka ohampi, that's what we made most of our food from, was the buffalo. We never wasted any part of his body. Everything was put to good use. Every part of his body was. And the sage tea, the peji jota, was made. We used that as sort of a, what you would call a laxative. Same thing goes with this, the taniga, more like laxatives. If you were constipated, they would feed you those things, and it would help you. And traditional ceremonies. In the old days, marriage, a Lakota man can have more than one wife. Or if she had sisters, it was his job to be the matchmaker for the sisters. You had to choose who for her to marry and who not to. As far as the courting went, a man would have to dress up real nice for the girl. And he would ride up and down in front of her teepee all day until she came out, and then he would snatch her and run away with her. But he would bring her home so that he would bring her back, and it was more of a signal to let all the other men in the village know that this is my woman. If I have to steal her, I would. In the old days too, if you stole a woman from a rival tribe, an enemy tribe of yours, she was yours. And you can basically marry her, and whatever children came from her, they belonged to the tribe. So she could have been a Pawnee woman or a Crow woman. Whatever children she bore for you belonged to the people there. Yeah. Well, this one here, stories from way back too. My great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather, his name's Casey Redcher. He's the son of Old Man Redcher. He was in love with this girl from Rosebud Reservation. Her name was Nellie Highhawk. And he said, "I'm going to marry her." And her father asked, "What are you going to give me in return for my daughter?" And he took him 100 horses. And took him 100 horses, and from that moment on, our family was stacked with legendary things like that. We were never looked at any different after that. The joke on us is everybody says, "Oh, Pine Ridge is royal family," you call us. So it was more like that's what he did. And from then on, Nellie Highhawk was part of the Spotted Tail family. Spotted Tail is related to her, and that's pretty much related to just about half of the famous guys out there. The raising of the children, or divorce. Anyway, yeah. Divorce was not a complicated issue back in the day. You didn't have legal wranglings. If your wife didn't want you, she'd literally put your stuff outside their teepee, and everybody would be like, she doesn't want him anymore. There's all this stuff out there. Now, different for a man. The man would send her back to her family, but the children would automatically go with the mother, because he couldn't keep, if the children were old enough to make their decision who they wanted to go with, and it was their decision to make, not the family, not the mother or father's. And as far as raising them, the women raised both the boys and the girls. But when the boys came to an age where it was the father's turn to raise them, they would. They taught them how to hunt. They taught them the ways of war, and also the ways of wisdom. And the reason why the mothers raised the children is because they were teaching the boys about respect. Respect for all people. respecting women mostly. See, in our culture, it was taught that we had to respect women. It was never a man's job to be acting like a foolish child among women. You weren't to be trying to act like you were any bigger than you really are. As far as the Sundance goes, and these two here go together, Sundance and the sweat is a part of a ritual that you have to do called a hamblecha. It's a vision, seeking your vision ceremony. You do the same thing. You sweat, you go up on the hill for 4 days and 4 nights without food or water until you have your vision. And if your vision requires that you Sundance, then you do it. But it's whatever you see, whatever you tell the holy man, what you saw, it's up to him to say, oh, and he's the one who interprets what you saw. When after you come down from the hill, you go into the sweat, you do it again. And then the holy man can tell you what you must do. Whether it's your job to be a Sundancer or a pipe carrier or just a common man. These were things that not a lot of people understand. As far as the powwows go, those were never a Lakota tradition. Those came from the Chippewa people. That came from what is known as the Great Lakes region. That's what, we never did that. That was something new to us back in the early 1900s, I would say. Yeah, but we do it now. We adopted almost everything that every Indian tribe does now has been adopted, but from each other. And it's been, that way ever since. The Pine Ridge Reservation today was established in 1889. And it's very, papers got mixed up again. It's 3,469 miles of buffalo grass mixed with desert. Well, which we call the Badlands. Population is 38,000. This whole census here was from 2010. The unemployment rate is 80 to 90%. Only 10% people have jobs here. Poverty rate is third highest in the nation. We're one of the third poorest counties in South Dakota alone. And alcoholism is 80%, highest in the nation anyway. Diabetes, 8 times the national average. Heart disease, twice the national average. Per capita income of $4,000 per year. We don't get, everybody thinks because we live on a reservation, we live tax-free, we get all this money, but we don't. We were the last people to surrender, and the only reason why the Cherokees get their money and just about any other tribe is because they all gave in, they surrendered right away. We did not. We resisted because, the reason why we resisted for so long is because we wanted to keep what belonged to us. We wanted to keep our language and our way of life. And that's all we wanted to do. But because of that, they put us in these positions. Substandard houses, mobile homes, all of this, the houses, everything is in very poor condition. You have a family of 7 people, even more, living in a 2 to 3 bedroom house. We have no shopping malls, no fast food restaurants, no recreational facilities, nothing. Nothing that's the luxuries of everybody else. You don't have any, no bookstores, nothing. The government wants to drive the people up because they want the rich, the land's rich in uranium. It's one of the biggest uranium deposits in the country. And that's what they want. They want that because they can make more nuclear weapons with that. That's all they want it for. And people are dying at a very younger age because they're drinking the water, and the water has that stuff uranium's getting in the water, and you see people who aren't even 50 years old yet dying from cancer. It gets in their bones or it gets in their blood or whatever, and they die early. And I have friends who had parents who died at 45 years old, you know, because of this stuff. It's basically third world conditions. If you've ever seen Somalia, you would know that this is right here in your backyard. I've discussed old Lakota traditions, food, clothing, way of life. I've discussed ceremonies, the low times and the high times of my great-grandfather. Many of the famous people that came from Lakota blood. It has been my pleasure it's been my honor and my pleasure to come and discuss this with you all today. Thank you.
Any questions?